Hello and welcome to edumate.tv. I'm CHETAN SHARMA. We learn to live and live to learn in what has turned out to be an unprecedented situation, an unprecedented pandemic. The history being written across the geography of Mother Earth, and a minor virus has created a major catastrophe, making each and every one of us rewind, rethink, reformat, restructure, re-strategize, reboot before we rebuild a new normal, a new education system. In the world of higher education, particularly at the helm, what's really required to overcome the unique set of challenges that have been posed and find solutions to them, and not just that, create opportunities in the new normal, will be a heady mix of the past and the future. So you require those who've got rich experience and knowledge of the past to intermingle and coalesce and leverage flexibility of the future to anticipate the needs. And that's what makes, at the helm, a very wise chancellor. And today we have a very special guest from the Commonwealth University of London, the co-chancellor, Dr. Dilip Nandkeolyar. Thank you, sir, for joining us on this very special show.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chetan. This is a great opportunity, and I will try and share whatever have been my experiences over the last 4-5 months.
What's most intriguing about this entire scenario, while it's so common that everybody seems to be impacted in somewhat an equal capacity, a lot of the challenges have been unique. So what have been yours, Dr. Dilip?
So I'll start with what is already known. We are living in what is known as the VUCA world, which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity.
Right.
Okay. That has been underlined and underscored and overscored, whichever way you like to put it, in every field of our living. And education is no different. However, one of the things that needs to be said is one sector which tried and has made constant effort over the last 4-5 months is bouncing back to as near normal as possible. There are about 10 major stakeholders as I was talking to you. First, of course, the students, then the teachers, then the staff and the administrators of the university, the parents, community, the elected representatives, the government and the regulators. All these form the ecosystem, and each one of us have now had to somehow, like you rightly said, have to come together, have to coalesce, have to collaborate to be able to make education a success. It has been a never before experience, at least not in my living memory. My experiences so far has been the first month we were all challenged to look at various platforms, how to make it interesting, how to make things happen, how to get students back into action, particularly in the higher education. Over a period of time, we are getting used to this particular thing, and who knows, the future now might be maybe a campusless institute.
That's an interesting thought, but let me just try and pose a counter thought to that. There's also one section of society which believes that this is just an interim phase, and perhaps we will go back entirely to what life was in the pre-COVID scenario, which basically means that we're going to spend a lot of time adjusting to a new world, which may actually take us back to the old world on the assumption that there will be a cure for COVID at the end of it all. So there will be a duplication of a process, and that seems to be a fear amongst a lot of people who are hesitant to take up this entire exercise. And that's why what they're advocating is perhaps the need of a gap year.
I would probably agree. The initial phases would be like that. But you see, even like when we were talking of the national education policy in India, with this freedom to choose, a variety of courses outside your own curriculum and etc., it would definitely, because no institute, I don't think in India, I don't think even my Commonwealth University can suddenly have a plethora of professors. People will have to go online, take courses, The challenge there is, of course, there could be recorded courses and there could be some interactive courses. And then maybe it could be mixed with 1 week, 2 week of actually face-to-face. But something like that, I foresee will be coming into the picture. However, many of the people who feel the way you have just described are probably right, because one of the most important thing in holistic education is considering the fact that man is a gregarious animal, and therefore social interaction is a necessity. Now, this is where the other stakeholder, like I said, the community, the regulators, the elected members and the government come into picture as to how this can be created and how they can support educational institutions into trying to do these kind of things.
You mentioned the word new education policy, which obviously would be my natural follow through as a question, because that's been one of the biggest events that have happened within this crisis. And well, it's obviously come at an opportune time, particularly when so much is at stake and so much needs to be changed. And of course, a lot of it will require a very high political will and commitment to put it to test and put it to the ground. And as well, I guess the most potent challenges would be the digital divide, given our poor digital infrastructure, as well as the need to train the teachers at an enormous scale. But that apart, in principle, do you agree with the policy? Because there is a lot of the past to be gained, and a lot of future also to be claimed.
As a policy, thousands and millions of salute. The devil is in the implementation. And when whatever I have looked at, I don't claim to be expert on that, but whatever I've looked at, there are too many pitfalls, starting right from the nursery. Okay, and one of them is, of course, this language thing, where till the 5th, if mother tongue or one of the languages will divide this country into several these things. So it is almost like students will need to have a visa. Students might have to pass an IELTS or GMAT or something like that to shift to another state. Now this, I don't know whether we are ready for it, because the education, as you can see, there are education hubs. It's not uniformly available everywhere. And this will cause a problem. So I don't know why this has been done, but maybe as a second language or something, but English must be compulsory, because that's the global language. Even the
That's also perhaps our edge over China when it comes to the outsourcing mechanism, one of our big pluses.
That's the point I was trying to make. We gained a head start over the entire world in the BPO industry only because we were the largest English-speaking country in the world. It's a different thing that we let that advantage pass to Philippines. Mother tongue, let's be proud of. There's nothing wrong with that, but we need to communicate with the world.
Perhaps, as a solution, which when all of us grew up into the pre-existence policy, there was English, there was Hindi, and there was a third language. It was the local language. And I think a compulsion of all of them it makes sense, because it's not so difficult to learn 3 languages at all for a student, and it just opens up the avenues for your communication skills, doesn't it?
I completely agree with you, but maybe that's the best option available, because there is a lobby, and that's a powerful one, where they insist on this mother tongue. In the higher education, with this mix-up of the freedom to the students to choose what he desires, poses too many implementational problems, too many administrative problems. First, you may not have qualified teachers. The advantage is that you can learn from the very best in the world, which of course means you have to be going online. The NEP does not look at, it looks at training the teachers, all right. But it does not look at the other aspects of what the teachers need. One of them is the recognition in terms of finance and all that. The solution is that this part also needs to be thought through. Because what is going to happen, these things are not done, then there is no motivation to compete with the best. My experiences in India has been that if you are a researcher, it means really not too much, because you are required to dedicate your 8 hours in the college or in the institute and do, apart from your teaching load, carry out some administrative.
So what I'm trying to bring out with market forces is that when you are opening up the education sector and you are strategically allowing overseas organizations and institutions to come and set up shop out there, so there will be overseas practices also in play, and that may throw open several opportunities which may enhance demand, and in that capacity also enhance the prices, the payouts, the remunerations, which seems to be a pressure point right now.
I would have absolutely agreed to this, provided the other aspects of the NEP are so constructive. I mean, so far, none of them have really shown interest. I know that some of the universities, red brick universities from UK, have bought land near Pune in Lavasa. Okay, this was in the earlier regime, because then we were talking about that and in anticipation. But even now, they have not shown any interest, whatever I've found out from Lavasa, of making even the first move. Maybe they are also studying the entire policy, because it is still quite straightforward. By giving freedom to the students, fine, it has put students in the center of everything, but the periphery also has to, look at it. So that is what is the problem. So the market forces are not going to be allowed by even the new policy.
I can share with you that, this would be, I think, my 52nd episode of the WISE Chancellor, having spoken to several people from across the country. And mind you, across even not just the geographies, but taking both urban and semi-urban locations into account. The level of professionalism amongst the teachers, their sense of ambition, their sense of enterprise, their sense of understanding of the global scenario and its fitment in terms of a collaborative attempt into India is rather high, which came out as a very pleasant surprise. So I'm trying to, present the sense of optimism basis that conversation, because I feel that the policy has, it's done what it's supposed to. It has a guideline, but a lot of push, I feel, is being done, at various levels by the institutes, and I'm here limiting myself to a lot of the private institutes, which I hope would show result in the not so far future.
I am not even for a minute doubting the caliber of Indian faculty. Not even for a minute. The question is that when we are standardizing things, when we are systematizing things, we are at the same time limiting the creativity, the interactivity. So whatever interactions you've had, just like I keep having with my colleagues, there is no dearth of creativity and intelligence and intellectualism. There is no dearth. It is just that when we have to fit into the system, a lot of it gets trimmed off. If you understand what
I understand. So tell me, okay, let me put this into a larger perspective for our audience and try to understand from the West. We look at best practices from the West. Where do you think the West are distinctly different? 2 or 3 very brief points that you can help us understand.
Number one, I'm from the management stream, where we have people who have worked for a few years before they come back to education and learn management. Now that's a problem in India, particularly in India, where right after your graduation you start doing your MBA. Okay, so the understanding or the real life hands-on experience is missing, and therefore the level of interest is not there as much. 1, 2, because of the ignorance, whatever the faculty were to tell or exchange with the students is taken as it is, not challenged. One of the things about education that I've found abroad and here is, unless you are able to challenge the status quo, you don't learn. To me, that is experiential. Now, abroad, we don't try and discuss a chapter, we don't try and deliver a lecture based on a PPT. All that is already done. at least wherever I have taught. Okay, so in the class we bring up issues and we try and encourage discussions which is civilized and free for all.
The sense I get from you, and which obviously is extremely valid, and I hope that the Indian system gets more attuned to it, is A, experiential learning. That's one. And secondly, critical thinking.
That's
and
right.
The ability to try and make the mind understand that you need to question. You just don't, accept what's given to you. And even if you do accept, first understand and then accept.
Correct.
Learn to challenge and then accept. Beautiful. I think it's very, very valid.
Just one more point I would like to make here. See, we have something known as summer internship program in most professional courses. At least in India, we have this internship program. Basically, the systems are such that monitoring is not really the issue, and even the Viva is a formality. So in one of the institutes, what I have tried to do is expose them as an ongoing thing. This is extra, more than the curriculum requirement. And we went and tied up with a lot of corporates and say, okay, there would be a lot of problems that you are wrestling with, which you've put it in back burners. You say it is important, but right now I'm firefighting, so let give this problem to the student. And together with the student, faculty would try and resolve this problem. Okay. And he will come to you once a week. Okay, best work in the campus. And we have discovered problems and resolved them. What it did was expose the student to the corporate world as to how behavior happens, etc., etc. Talking to the seniors, talking to the juniors, everybody,
Right.
and resolving problems. That WEF also says is the most important aspect, resolving problems.
At edumate.tv, in fact, the other thing that really resonates in the lines is that we believe we are a solution-led channel. We look at solutions, not just the problem. We look at answers, not just questions. And that's a very integral part of our philosophy. So keeping that in mind, and given our time constraint, I'd like you to highlight 3 opportunities which the COVID environment has thrown up for us.
First is that most of the curriculum that we have should be aimed at experiential learning or giving small problems that needs to be solved basis the theories learned. Okay, that is the number one. The number 2 opportunities that we have as we go into this mixed bag of, like I described you 3, is how do we encourage social interaction? Because being a first-class engineer doesn't help. You have to be part of the entire, social ecosystem. So that is to be built in right from the very beginning, and in higher education, definitely. And third is how do we build in creativity? Again, this creative part is sadly missing, and that is why the corporates, at least in India, say that 75-80% of the students are not even employed.
The other alignment is that is in fact one of our taglines in edumate.tv, that you have to at some level educate to employ. So thank you for bringing that up. It's a very critical point, particularly for a country whose employment rates have been at a 45-year high. And even those that are employed, several of them perhaps are not even employable or aptly employed. They're there perforce, not entirely by choice. Now, to round up this particular conversation, we've learned so much from you, Dr. Dilip. I'd like you to share your immense learnings with our audience. 4 specific sets of the ecosphere which you spent out in a spot of advice from you. So your advice, Dr. Dilip, to A, your fellow vice chancellors, B, the parent, C, the student, and is the teacher.
For the students, now it is more and more important to be highly participative. As we move towards Industry 4.0, Employment 4.0, so Education 4.0 is going to be a very, very unforgiving territory. And therefore, the application has to be a little more serious. That is not to say that you can't seek fun. For the parents, the paradigms are now changing. the systems are now changing. As we have globalized, as we have integrated, the social systems have broken a bit. So the parents will have to be a bit more understanding and bit more supportive. And in these times when there are online, they need to be able to support their children and guide their children as to what's best for them. For the chancellors, I would say that more and more experiential learning that you can get, not only in the professional courses, but even in the pure courses like arts, science, and commerce or whatever. And for the teacher, it is important. Now it is almost scientifically proven that you can't hold the attention of a young person in a classroom situation also for more than 20 minutes. But the classes usually in India last for 1 hour or 1.5 hours. And sometimes for a variety of economic reasons, they are long. So the teachers must need to break for 20 minutes, after 20 minutes. Okay, this has been highlighted by that Kit Kat ad that you will see in the TV. So break it with a trivia, which might be relevant. Break it with a game, which might be relevant, to keep the interest alive and get the students back. That is a character that I have not seen, not only in India, but in most countries abroad that I have gone, I haven't seen. Okay. So that is an important aspect that the teachers must learn. Let me tell you that some of the online classes that, just requesting, I have attended. There is one, Dr. Benny Godwin. He is, of course, now out of academics. I have requested him to, let me attend some of his online classes. And he does this beautifully. He gets them back so well. So that means the talent does exist in India and amongst all us faculty, which is what I said to you earlier, that there is no doubt about that. There are some of the best people available, but maybe the system, maybe the politics of education or that institution does not allow that.
And so, of course, as you say that education is a political subject, under one's breath, but truly insightful. Thank you so much, Dr. Dilip. Such a pleasure to learn from you, to hear from you. And, I often say on edumate.tv that the big C of COVID can only be matched and countered by 4 very critical C's. By being collective, by being corrective, by being creative, and of course by being committed. And you, sir, have been all of that and much more, which makes you truly a very wise chancellor. Thank you for talking to us, sir.
I just want to add one thing. I have been your admirer for a long time, and it's great interacting with you so closely. Thank you, Chetan. Thank you for having me on this show. First, it is Chetan Sharma who thought this, and kudos to him, and I have been his admirer. I think you are running a great mission, and this is the right time. This is the right time when you can take it forward, and please try and reach as many people as you can in the education world, not only the faculty and the students, but more importantly, the people who are behind the scene, the administrators, the regulators. Those are the people who need to now look at this with a different paradigm. All my best wishes to you, and may you succeed in your mission. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We're honored and blessed. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.